I've never had a mince pie, you know.
You've never had a mince pie?
I've never liked the look of them, and they don't sound that good.
It's pastry goodness. How have you never liked the look of one? I'm buying you a pack for Christmas because that's an outrage. You've never had. You're 26.
He doesn't deserve them.
I'm not even going to eat. I'm not going to eat them.
It sucks.
Whoa! Spoilers ahead. Do be careful. Hello and welcome to another episode of That Price, in which we watch a new release and we discuss if it was worth that price. I'm your host Alex, joined by Abeka.
Hello.
Lewis.
Hello.
And a spoiled called Holly.
Princess Holly.
Today we are discussing a re-release. I know that's not actually a new release, but there's nothing else on. We are watching Memories. One more time, please. Memories of Murder.
이 순사밥도 먹는 거고 내가 다른 건 몰라도 이 사람 보는 눈은 있다는 거 알아?
Memories of Murder is a loosely based true story crime drama in which two detectives struggle with a case of multiple young women being found raped and murdered in a small Korean province during the 80s. The director and writer of this is the same person that did Parasite, which was an excellent film. So we thought we'd give it a go. So how did everyone take to this re-release, remaster version of the film?
I loved it. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's really hard for me to find fault with the film itself. I think that this film, rarity to films nowadays, and I think a lot of his films do the same thing, everything interlinks. Like the lighting, the setting, the colour palette, like absolutely everything kind of interlinks, so there's nothing that kind of jars you off. It all just kind of runs so smoothly that it almost looks like there's not as much effort put into it as there is, but it's just super clever, and I love him now. He's my favourite.
I would massively agree, yeah. I really, really like this film. I came out of the initial viewing thinking it was really good, really solid. I was the same. I was struggling to find any particular faults, and I still haven't. After sort of sitting on it for a day or two, I think I would agree that I love it. I think it's incredibly consistent. I think it's incredibly strong top to bottom, from performances to set pieces to the storytelling. I thought it was incredibly visual and really clever, like uses of a visual storytelling, like which range from the sort of unsettling to creepy to just sort of getting information across. Like one of my favourite uses of the sort of creepy visuals was, I think it's the first victim you actually see get taken, when she's walking in front of the field next to the factory, and you see the killer just sort of come out of the grass in the background, like way off in the background. He's blurred out and then he goes back down, and I was just like, that's brilliant. That's like, it's not a jump scare and it's not cheap. It's just kind of unsettling and weird. I thought this one was really, really good. Really good.
I watched this last night, and I think I was a little bit shell-shocked after I finished watching it, just because I was a bit like, this is probably one of the most perfect films I've seen in a very, very long time. And I absolutely loved it. Like, I've not seen Parasite, so I can't comment on what this director's film style is like. I know, nothing to go off, and it's bad that I've not watched that yet. But this film from the start has made me want to go and watch his other films, and I was like, God, if he produced stuff like this back in 2003, it's got remastered now, what are his other films like? But yeah, for me it was the perfect film.
I agree now with everyone, because after my first initial watch of it, I did really like it. I would rate it like very high, but it was as I was like thinking of Parasite, and because there was a lot of stuff in this film, in what Lewis was saying, in the visual sense, that I was kind of like, with. But then I was just thinking about Parasite and just these reasons for using certain techniques and ways of showing stuff, and then it's just like, yeah, obviously he's done that to make this work. Specifically that scene, like you said, Lewis. Because something I had a bit of like an issue with is like the use of lighting and like making an atmosphere. It didn't quite click for me at first. I thought it was just showing stuff happen as it would be, and I did like that. but I just kind of felt like it was missing. But then I kept rethinking about that scene in the field, and I was like, that's mainly why he's done it. It doesn't need to try and trick you with being overly dark and creepy by having it just showing what it was, and having that moment with him popping out, just being there and popping out there, makes it so much more intense and terrifying. So as I've more been thinking about it, the more it's been staggering up of how much I enjoyed it. It's just like I really want to go and rewatch it again and just see how a second take of it feels for me. And yeah, I thought it was fantastic. The character arcs between our two main detectives, Detective Park and I'm probably going to butcher the pronouncement of this, but Detective Theo, they were excellent. Like the compare and contrast of each other and then flipping it around towards the end, it was just excellent. I loved all of that.
I would agree, yeah, with everything, like character-wise. I think one of my favourite assets like of this film is the general atmosphere. And there's one sequence that's really, really sort of low-key and doesn't actually have that much bearing on the story. I think they did go in just to sort of get like an atmosphere across. And it's the scene where the detective visits, you know, the girl that he let go, like his first victim. Just the way it's shot, like he's going up that hill and then like all the wind's coming through. I think she's growing like lettuce or something outside of her house. And they've really like, I think what they did was really highlighted that sort of like that sound of the wind like rushing through everything, and it just creates this really like desolate sort of cold feel. It's like I can feel like the atmosphere, like it's palpable, even though it is relatively simple. It's going to see someone. Yeah, I just thought that was really, really good. Like really, really solid use of sound design and set design, like the woman's house and just the way he was shot as well. Like lots of wide shots on that hill. He stood in the field. He's like, he just feels very lonely and desolate and cold, which I think is one of the overriding points of this film.
What's beautiful as well, like going on to the cinematography types of things, is the way that the cinematography and the editing in this film marry beautifully, like in such a good way. Like all the shots are held slightly longer than an average shot would be held for, and in like certain shots it's just works incredibly. And like my favorite example of it is when the guy's masturbating and you've got the two detectives on one side and the new detective on the other side, and that shot is held for such a long time, but it just does everything it needs to do. You don't need to flash between to show close-ups of everyone. It was just a wide shot, see everything that's been done. It's not too fancy, it's just it does what it needs to, and that's just a perfect example of how everything in this film just everyone like was on their game and just decided how to marry things together to make the actual film work as a piece.
With that, again, with that specific scene in mind, it's like the way, and going off what I know of Parasite, he does these long takes of it because it's like he uses these moments to change the like tone and the genre in that scene. Because like at first of watching that, I was laughing like, he's masturbating, that's hilarious. But then it got really uncomfortable and a bit eerie, and then the whole capture, like the twig snapping, it was very like slapstick comedy, but it all blended in so nicely and so just like rounded of a scene that, like some films where they do that, they change the tone of the scene mid-scene, it's very jarring and then just ruins it. Whereas this, it just felt so natural, and I can appreciate it for every bit. Like, if Holly was to come out to me and go, that scene was funny, Lewis went, that scene was uncomfortable, Becky was like, that scene was arousing, I'd be like, yeah, I can understand every part of that.
Why did my scene have to be the arousing one?
Oh, I think we know why. I think we know.
Fucking hell. Going back to the film, I really loved how this film actually made me feel, because I feel like I felt so many different emotions throughout this film. Like, it started and straight away I felt like, oh, I'm interested, I'm like in there with these detectives, you know, proper intrigued on who's done this. And it made me laugh sometimes, and it made me sad. Like for instance, going back to the woman, the first victim, like when she started telling her a little bit of the story, part of me inside was like, oh, this is your horrible. This isn't just a guy that murders people. This is like some serial creepy ass rapist too that's just destroying these women's lives. And I felt that again when he was watching from the trees and he didn't know who to pick, the schoolgirl or the detective's wife. And then he went for the schoolgirl, and I just felt like part of me died inside when they got there the day after and she was just dead on the floor.
Yeah, they do a really good job of stringing you along with that emotion as well, particularly with that little girl, like the good detective, the one that's actually competent and knows what he's doing. Or does he? I'll go into that a bit later. Like, does he know what he's doing, or was the other guy right all along? I don't know. He's really, really angry, like visibly angry. And I thought it was kind of amazing how with him you are. Like when he goes to sort of take it out on the sort of primary suspect, I guess, the ex-military kid. I was kind of like, oh, I don't really care if you know whether it's him. Like, I need as a viewer, I need some catharsis for like the scene prior with the kid, and the director provides it straight away. It's like he knows what you want to see, and he knows what sort of emotional basis you're on as you're watching the film, and really feeds it, which is kind of an incredible thing to do with a film, to sort of trust the viewer to be with you, you know, to get on board with the tone and the type of storytelling that you're trying to accomplish. And I think it does it really, really well.
I think what's impressive as well is the story itself is pretty simple, but it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Like, it just shows you, like, it doesn't. The story doesn't have to be overcomplicated to make a good story. He's taken quite a simple premise, and he's managed to expand it in like different ways that no one has ever kind of done before, to make it very interesting. And it's just super, super clever. I'm a bit in awe, to be honest.
Well, that's one of my favorite aspects of this, the fact that they were always wrong. Like, it was complete coincidence. Everything that they were looking into, they were completely wrong. And with the actual ending, which I'll go into more later, but with that, it made me go, this film wasn't even about catching the killer. This film was about how these people are dealing in these situations of trying to catch the killer. And the fact they were all wrong was amazing. Like, that blows my mind. It's like, oh my god, it was complete coincidence, every bit of this. And that is really sad. Like, as an audience member, I was just kind of gutted for him. I was like, this is awful that this happened as well. But then, like, thinking about it, it's like, that is genius. Like, stringing your audience along, making them think there is going to be some form of resolution, and just to hit you with this bombshell of, it doesn't work like that in real life sometimes.
I think one of the major themes I want to say in the film, and it goes back to what Becky was saying about how the film makes you feel all this, like, the film has you run the gambit of emotions. And I feel like if another sort of similar type of film had done the same ending, where there's not really a resolution, and they don't get what they want, they have to move on, and they, you know, there's no sort of meaningful wrap up to the events prior, it'd be very, very disappointing in another film, I feel. But this one is kind of different. It's kind of exempt, because it kind of uses the theme of, like, you know, this murderer could have been anyone. Like, you didn't get him because really it's just chaos. Like, trying to catch a serial killer, it could have been anybody, and it's not fair, and it never pans out the way you want it to.
During the 80s, there was a lot of chaos and people were incompetent, and that was when I was in high school, and that's when all those serial killings actually happened. And so this film was sort of a reflection on why they failed to catch the actual killer, and a reflection of how Korean society functioned in the 80s.
It's quite an interesting theme of, like, you know, things don't have to make sense because you try and place rules around them, you know. It can just be chaos when you look at it, and you might not get what you want.
I also feel like, though, saying about emotions and how different emotions, I think it's very clever in making you feel how it wants you to feel. It's very, like, I never expected to like the ending of this film because I was very like excited to get the results, and as soon as I got them I was like, and I was really thinking, if we don't find out who it's going to be, I'm going to be very disappointed. But yet it twists it in a way that I was like, you know what, I'm glad. Like, I'm really glad that we there is no resolution. And I think it's the way that the film is made that it's made you feel like that. It's like, no, you will like this. This is why, and it kind of turns on itself. So it's like, oh, you feel like this now, and then I'm gonna turn. Super clever.
I trust that the director wanted you to feel that it was harrowing and haunting, and it's more horrifying by the end when they don't have a clue, when it could have been anybody. They could have walked past him 100 times. Like, again, it links back to what I was saying before, where they're trying to establish this tone, this cold, desolate, sort of lonely tone. It fits that. So it's the cohesion that saves it, I think. That, oh, we didn't get him. But then it's fine, it fits. It's sort of like, you know, in keeping with what they've set up prior.
Did anybody start to question if it was a copy at one point?
Yes.
Sorry. Because I just kept thinking, oh my god, is it actually this new guy from out of town, this new detective? And I was like, is it? Is it not? What's happening?
Yeah, I questioned everybody. Like, the second he went, no, it's this, I went, that was a bit too easy for you to guess, weren't it? And then I suspected Detective Park because he was just a scumbag, and I suspected everyone. I started suspecting the female cop who noticed the radio, because I was like, female hands, and again, you noticed something that I don't think you should have. And then it was none of them, and I was like, oh my god. Like, during one of the interrogation scenes, a random plumber walks in, fixes something, and then walks out with the camera not really going to him or even looking at him. I was like, it's him. Follow him now, quick. And then it's just never there again. And I loved that I was just questioning everybody. Literally every person that came on screen, I was like, it's you.
Again, it ties into the whole idea, doesn't it, of it could be anyone. I trust the craft and I trust the effort that went into this film so much that I'd be willing to say that that's intentional. You know, like that feeling of like, none of this is really adding up, they're not getting anywhere, it must be one of them. Like, you kind of conditioned to think that way by other films. That is the kind of twist that would arise in another film of this type. But yeah, I think that's an intentional choice, having you look at everyone and second guess them, because again, it ties into the whole concept of the film.
I also think what was interesting is when I first started the film, I was sitting there going, ugh, corrupt cops again, like, oh my god. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh my god, I feel so bad for them. No wonder they change evidence. They just want to catch someone.
Yeah.
You just want this misery to end. Please be the pervert. Please be him.
I was like, just arrest him, it's fine, he's close enough.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, just shoot him in the face, it's fine.
I wanted him to die. I honestly wanted him to die. I was like, he's gonna die now, bye.
It'll be okay. It was a mistake, but it could have been him.
Yeah, it's fine.
One of my favourite scenes, upon reflection, not just again with the whole thinking of all the story and the characters, is when Detective Park goes, the guy might not have pubes. Because as silly as it was, he's definitely right in that, because there was no hair fibres. And then I just love the scene where it's just... and then a little kid walked on, and again the tones up, because it was funny at first, and then as soon as that kid walked on, I was like, oh, hey, cut that out. And it was just so... I just love how the director just blends in these themes so well, these genres in the same scenes. It's the reason why I reckon Parasite is definitely the best film of the year, because it has every genre imaginable works so well. And this film, it doesn't have to that element, but every theme and genre like it uses, it works so well, and it's so engaging and questionable.
Now it's probably a good time to go back to the fact that he was right all along. Really, like when you look at it.
But this is something I was wondering. So the real life killer was caught in 2019, and he was just some guy. I don't know if the ending was refilmed just to emphasize that, or if that was always the original ending. I might look into that. But if he had already filmed that before remastering it, then damn, that is kind of weird and spooky and just kind of brilliant that he was just some guy.
I'd like to add, like, just in terms of general filmmaking, I like how there was a vested effort to lend a sort of like natural feeling to scenes. Like there'd often be like a lot of commotion or sort of like ancillary dialogue going on that didn't really matter but was still present in like the sound bed. And then the one that sticks out is one of the first sort of investigation scenes, you know, where forensics haven't shown up yet, and then a tractor comes across and ruins the potential like vital evidence on the floor. And they're flitting back and forth to like all these random sort of people from the department having conversations, and he's having to do it everyone, and then there's people sliding down that hill, and he's going to like the tractor sort of marks, and he's like, what the hell's this? And then they cut away to more people having a conversation, and it's just, it makes it feel like busy and believable.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
relatable almost. Not relatable, but you know what I mean? Like I can feel that this is like a living, breathing procedure going on that the police are undertaking right now, and that they're doing their best, and you just get that sense immediately through that natural feeling.
Well, it's like you were saying before, it's like a very chaotic moments in like a lot of these, and that is also another chaotic moment because they're all there, they're not properly like equipped with setting up a crime scene and doing their jobs properly. And the way they edit it as well, to going from that to that, it's like you feel the chaoticness in that moment, and it's really like just feels good. It's lovely seeing a film in it.
I think this is what they call a movie.
Yeah, cinema is words I've heard.
Yeah, I think this is what my mum used to call cinema when I was little.
I think it's safe to say that we are gonna say yes, but I'll be polite enough. Would you all recommend? Do you reckon it was worth that price, Becky?
Yes, 1000%. One of the best films I think I've ever seen, and I will definitely recommend anybody to watch this film.
Holly?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll echo Becky a little bit and say it's up there with my favourite crime dramas now. It's kind of, not that I want to watch it too much because it is very dour, but it's up there in that selection of crime dramas that I will pop on now if I'm in the mood for that kind of thing. It's in there with like Seven and Silence of the Lambs and stuff like that.
I would also agree. I would definitely recommend. I wouldn't recommend to everybody though, because something Yama mentioned. This is a very slow, somber film. This is a proper like things represent stuff and all this and that. You need to like really be engaged in it. I wouldn't recommend to casual fans, but like, you know, if you're in for a really thoughtful, well thought out, passionate film, this is a crime drama. This is it. Watch this. It's fantastic. Watch it now. So yeah, that was our discussion of Memories of Murder. We hope you enjoyed. Definitely go and give it a watch. And if you did enjoy this, how about give us a like, share, and a subscribe. Follow us on Letterboxd. We tend to use that more often than any other form of media. And we hope to see you all next time. Love yous.
Bye.
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 Hey, we finally watched a good film.
I can't believe you never have inspired me. Sorry.
They just sound